Hey there, and welcome back to another episode of Brainy Book Dragon. Today, I'm going to tell you some of the recent books that I have been reading just throughout my normal day. Okay, so I read The Witch's Heart for an online book club I have. And sorry, I just popped my knuckles. And this was actually a pretty intriguing book. You think you know the story of Loki, and Loki's gotten a lot of popularity lately because of the Marvel universe. But this book by Genevieve Gornichek was very intriguing. So the paperback of this has 368 pages. It was published in November of 2021, so it's still a rather new title on this. This was such a heartwarming story about a mother's love and about, the story behind Loki that you don't really get to see. So the blurb on this says, Angrboda's story begins where most witches' tales end, with a burning, a punishment from Odin for refusing to provide him with knowledge of the future. The fire leaves Angrboda injured and powerless, and she flees into the farthest reaches of a remote forest. There she is found by a man who reveals himself to be Loki, and her initial distrust of him transforms into a deep and abiding love. Their union produces 3 unusual children, each with a secret destiny, who Angrboda is keen to raise at the edge of the world, safely hidden from Odin's all-seeing eye. But as Angrboda slowly recovers her prophetic powers, she learns that her blissful life and possibly all of existence is in danger. With help from the fierce huntress Skadi, with whom she shares a growing bond, Angrboda must choose whether she'll accept the fate that she's foreseen for her beloved family or rise to remake their future. From the most ancient of tales, this novel forges a story of love, loss, and a hope for the modern age. So when I say that this is such a poignant story that every single one of us who read it cried our eyes out, I'm really not kidding. And that's the funniest part is that we all felt completely ripped apart and shredded, but we all loved this book tremendously. It was a really well diverse group of readers for this book, and every single one of us gave it nothing less than 9.5 stars. So if that doesn't speak for itself, I don't know what does. Now, one of the other books that I recently read is The Serpent and the Wings of Night. This is by Carissa Broadbent, and this was published in August of 2022, so a rather recent publication. This was really intriguing, though, because anybody who has read Sarah J. Maas, anybody who just loved kind of the Throne of Glass series and the A Court of Thorns and Roses series, this was suggested as kind of the next book to jump into. And I have to say, amazing choice. This is really for the lovers of the first Throne of Glass book, because it's a tournament style story. So if you really like to see the main character go through trials and tribulations, this is definitely the one to go to. Now, this is the first book in a duology, so there is a second book that's coming out. Now, this book is 502 pages for the hardcover, so it is a lengthier book, worth every page. Personally, I loved this thing. It was one of those books where, you kind of get the ball rolling at the beginning, and then suddenly you're halfway into the story. It just went so quickly. Now, the blurb on this book says, human or a vampire, the rules of survival are the same. Never trust, never yield, and always, always guard your heart. Now, those of you who, this is just my side note, those of you who have read the Throne of Glass series, you will recognize the yield word. That was part of Aelin's verbiage. Her phrase that she constantly reminds herself about is, you do not yield. So again, just very along those same lines, a very similar tone. So back to the blurb, sorry about that. It says, the adopted human daughter of the night-born vampire king, Oriya carved her place in a world designed to kill her. Her only chance to become something more than prey is entering the Kajari, a legendary tournament held by the goddess of death herself. But winning won't be easy amongst the most vicious warriors from all three vampire houses. To survive, Uriah is forced to make an alliance with a mysterious rival. Everything about Rain is dangerous. He is a ruthless vampire, an efficient killer, an enemy to her father's crown, and her greatest competition. Yet, what terrifies Araya most of all is that she finds herself oddly drawn to him. But there's no room for compassion in the Kajari. War for the House of Night brews, shattering everything that Araya thought she knew about her home. And Rain may understand her more than anyone, but their blossoming attraction could be her downfall in a kingdom where nothing is more deadly than love. So, obviously, you kind of see where this is going, right? No secret there. Obviously, this is, a romance. It reads similar to a YA, but it's definitely not a YA. And honestly, the only thing that makes it not a YA is because of, obviously a sex scene that's later in the book. And I mean, it is later in the book. It is not tied throughout the entire story. I think I made it about 80% before we got the spicy scene. So that's also something to consider too. It was a really great story. I have to say, if you are a big fan of Sarah J. Maas, this was a great one to jump into. But speaking of this same author, Carissa Broadbent, she also wrote a trilogy called Daughter of No Worlds. It is the War of Lost Hearts trilogy. But the first book is called Daughter of No Worlds. Again, this is a book that is becoming very popular on TikTok. Just a lot of people talking about these stories right now. And I am reading this one on Kindle right now. It is 518 pages. It was published in 2020. So you would think that a lot more of us had read it by now, but obviously not. A lot of us are just now getting into it because of the jumping off from the Moss universe. So this also has a very strong female lead. Really interesting story. I like the backgrounds that we're getting in this one. We've got a really great magic system in this story as well. The Serpent and the Wings of Night, it's not so much a magic system as it is like different races of different kinds of characters. This book series has a lot more magic into it. And we also have kind of an internal creature at one point. It's very intriguing, but again, there are some trigger warnings in this one. The main character is whipped, and then she also worked in one of the oldest industries in the world, if you know what I mean. So here's the blurb on this one, though. Her life for freedom, her blood for love, her soul for vengeance. Ripped from a forgotten homeland as a child, Tasana learns how to survive with nothing but a sharp wit and a touch of magic. But the night she tries to buy her freedom, she barely escapes with her life. Desperate to save the best friend she left behind, Tasana journeys to the Orders, the most powerful organizations of magic wielders in the world. But to join their ranks, she must complete an apprenticeship with Maxentarius Farleon, a handsome and reclusive fire wielder who despises the Orders. The Order's intentions are cryptic, and Tasana must prove herself under the threat of looming war. But even more dangerous are her growing feelings for Maxentarius. The bloody past he wants to forget may be the key to her future, or the downfall of them both. But Tasana will stop at nothing to save those she abandoned, even if it means gambling in the Order's deadly games, even if it means sacrificing her heart, even if it means wielding death itself. Now, when Throne of Glass was first released, that entire series was categorized as a YA series, and you could find that series in the YA section of bookstores. This series, even though it is somewhat similar, it is very much an adult series. Now, Throne of Glass recently has been recategorized as an adult series. So that is something to keep in mind as well. Is that series continuing? Are we going to get more in Crescent City 3? Not quite sure yet. There's a lot of stuff up in the air for that. But this trilogy has a great start. Now, I have not officially finished the first book. I'm about 85% of the way through, so a little bit more left, but it's going really well. So I have to say, if that's kind of your vibe, definitely check this out. All right. Now, I recently finished How to Sell a Haunted House by Grady Hendrix. This was released in January of 2023, so a very recent release. I literally got it like the week it came out. I thought it was awesome. I thought it was going to be super spooky. The hardcover is 432 pages, so a decent sized book, but not too long on this one. This was very interesting. I'll read you the blurb first and then tell you what I thought. So the blurb says, when Louise finds out her parents have died, she dreads going home. She doesn't want to leave her daughter with her ex and fly to Charleston. She doesn't want to deal with her family home, stuffed to the rafters with the remnants of her father's academic career and her mother's lifelong obsession with puppets and dolls. She doesn't want to learn how to live without the two people who knew and loved her best in the world. Most of all, she doesn't want to deal with her brother Mark, who never left their hometown, gets fired from one job after another, and resents her success. Unfortunately, she'll need his help to get the house ready for sale because it'll take more than some new paint on the walls and clearing out a lifetime of memories to get this place on the market. But some houses don't want to be sold, and their home has other plans for both of them. Dun, dun, dun. Right. Now this house and the cover is a great cover art. Ironically, the cover art actually shows kind of a dollhouse because you can see the floorboard behind it. It's on the floor kind of thing, but the lighting is great. The colors are great. Amazing cover art. However, there is no dollhouse that is referred to in the story, so don't look for that. However, you do get all of the dolls and the puppets. So that's kind of weird. I mean, those are creepy enough to start out with, right? So definitely a great creepy premise that we start with there. It is categorized as a mystery, thriller, and suspense book. However, while I was reading this book, and I went ahead and listened to it on audio at the same time that I was reading it, and I was in the car when a scene came up and I busted out laughing. You can't even make this kind of stuff up. I had seen this book listed on a friend's Goodreads as well. And so I asked her how the book was going, and she got a very interesting facial expression and told me that she DNF'd the book at about like 25% of the way into the story. And she would not tell me why, but she kept saying, just read it. You'll see it. You'll totally understand why I DNF'd this. For those of you who don't know what DNF stands for, it stands for did not finish. It means that we put down a book and don't pick it back up. Once I got to about 25% of the book, I found the scene that obviously turned her off. I thought it was hilarious. I actually felt more intrigued by the story, but I'm not going to ruin this for you. I'm just going to give you one phrase. And that's all that I'm going to say here. Squirrel, baby Jesus. That's all I'm going to say there. Very interesting scene. Very interesting story premise, the way that it's introduced. There is another kind of plot twist towards the end that I was really glad that they brought in, because there was a bit of a plot hole in kind of the about 60 to 75% of the story. There was a plot hole in relation to the brother and the main premise. So, but all in all, I think it was a good book. I thought it was fun to read. Just don't expect to actually be scared of anything in general. But it was actually a really fun story. All right, I've got two more here, and these are books that I recently started and I have not finished. I recently started Mortal Engines. It is the first book in, apparently, it says a 4-book series, but there's actually like 8. So, but this book is written by Philip Reeve. It was published in May of 2017, and it's only got 320 pages. Now, I can also say I'm reading the paperback. The line spacing and the font size on this book is great. You will end up reading it faster than you realize. The story in Mortal Engines is fast-paced. It's got very intriguing world building, and just I'm loving it so far. Now, I'm also coming off of the long books of Aragon and Eldest. So jumping into this series has actually been really just kind of refreshing to see the story moving quickly. And especially because they are shorter books, the plot does move faster because there's just less to go through. So I think I will be reading all four of these books just because I am loving it right now. And I am about a third of the way done with the first book. So really just ramping up the story right now. So here is the blurb for this. London is hunting again. Emerging from its hiding place in the hills, the great attraction city is chasing a terrified little town across the wastelands. Soon, London will feed. In the attack, Tom Natsworthy is flung from the speeding city with a murderous, scar-faced girl. They must run for their lives through the wreckage and face a terrifying new weapon that threatens the future of the world. Beloved storyteller Philip Reeve creates a brilliant new world in the Mortal Engines series called phenomenal, violent and romantic, action-packed and contemplative, funny and frightening by the Sunday Times. It is the epic City Eat City adventure is now a motion picture produced by Peter Jackson. So this is a movie. My husband has seen the movie. He said it was a pretty interesting movie, but it has really bad reviews. And the trailer for this movie looks so intriguing. And so I asked my husband why he thought the movie didn't get such good reviews. And he said he's pretty sure that it was because people just don't grasp the concept that was introduced here. Because the cities are portable, the cities move. To me, it kind of has that Waterworld feel. And I know I'm aging myself when I say that, but the Waterworld movie with Kevin Costner, it's very similar in the way that the cities move in this book. They're kind of man-made islands in a way. And in this book, they do kind of take in another city and then part it out and utilize the resources. So very intriguing. We also have characters that are really well built. We have backstories that are intriguing and multi-layered. So it's a very, very interesting story. Definitely looking forward to finishing this one and reading more of the series. Okay, last but not least, I recently started reading the London Seance Society. This is the book of the month for April for my online book club called the Book Nerd University. This was chosen because of community votes. I'm really loving how this has started. It's 352 pages, and it was actually published in March of this year, so a very recent release. This is the same author who wrote The Lost Apothecary. This is Sarah Penner. So I did read The Lost Apothecary. I did like it. I did not like the ending. I really wish that it had ended differently, but I did enjoy the concepts and the tone and the ideas that she brought out into that story. And that's kind of the same delicious dimension that we're getting in this story as well. I really love the depth that she adds to characters and the plot. So very intriguing here. Now, the premise for this, what the blurb says, here we go. 1873. At an abandoned chateau on the outskirts of Paris, a dark seance is about to take place, led by acclaimed spiritualist Baudeline Dallaire, known worldwide for her talent in conjuring the spirits of murder victims to ascertain the identities of people who killed them. She is highly sought after by widows and investigators alike. Lena Wicks has come to Paris to find answers about her sister's death, but to do so, she must embrace the unknown and overcome her own logic-driven bias against the occult. When Baudeline is beckoned to England to solve a high-profile murder, Lena accompanies her as an understudy. With shared determination, the women find companionship that perhaps borders on something more. And as they team up with the powerful men of London's exclusive seance society to solve the mystery, they begin to suspect that they are not merely out to solve a crime, but perhaps entangled in one themselves. So I actually just participated in a Zoom meeting talk that was awesome with Roger Luckhurst this past Wednesday when he was talking about the Ghost Club that was around 1882 to 1936. Very intriguing discussion, was actually really cool to listen to. And so jumping into this book at the same time just is so interesting. I don't know what it is about reading and it coming in phases of things having similar themes and storylines. Just So intriguing. But this has been a really great book to jump into. The cover art is beautiful. I have to say, I do love the cover art on this one. But the story is just so well written. I really like the way that Sarah Penner creates her characters and the themes and tones that she puts into the story. So definitely want to check out as well. If you do want to find out about Book Nerd University, you can find us at booknerd.university. We have a website, so you can sign up and join us for our monthly meetings. We actually meet twice a month, once to talk about the book that we all read, and then once to just talk about all sorts of book awesomeness. So those are the books that I have recently been into. We had 6 different books today. So let me know down in the comments below if you guys have read any of these, or if you have some similar feelings about these books that I do. I would love to hear about what you guys are reading right now. And I will talk to you guys in the next episode. Have fun reading.